I think Taylor Skubal pitching one game is absolutely ridiculous. I think he's a red coat.
Garden, Rick Pitino has his guys heating up at the right moment, right before the postseason when March hits.
I mean, yeah, like you said, it's efficient, but I mean, are you really that dominant, or are you just really good at one thing?
For injury in the NFL.
This is like putting the NHL players on roller skates. Should we have a roller skating all-star game?
Welcome into Plead Your Case, Waynesburg Community Television's national sports debate show, now expanding outside the realm of the Power 4 sports. All our panelists will expand into the depths of professional sports while speaking on the newest sports topics each week. We're also bringing new mini-segments like I Got Something to Say, State of the Union, Pick'em Pools, while even bringing back a popular mini-segment, the 5 and 5. Here at PYC, we plan to create debates, create memories, and the best takes possible for you, the viewer. No one is safe. Every opinion, every angle will be challenged and discussed to further detail. So sit back, relax. It's now time to plead your case.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 18 of Plead Your Case. I myself, Brady Donovan, am here with a few familiar faces from our Olympic preview, but right now we'll be breaking down the Olympics. Wyatt Cole Keller here. So, guys, we saw a bunch of kind of predicted things that we talked about on the preview. So, break it down. Is there any debate that Norway is the best country in Winter Olympic history?
All right, so while Norway did win and outrace the United States in medal, winning 41 total medals, all of their medals came from skiing. They had 14 medals in cross-country skiing, 11 in biathlon, 6 in Nordic combined skiing, 5 medals in ski jumping, 2 in freestyle skiing, and 2 in alpine skiing. You don't hear any other sport, maybe besides they won 4 in speed skating. But everything they did was skating or skiing. They didn't do great in curling. They didn't do great in snowboarding. So while they were dominant, I get that. But everything was in skiing. I think United States ran away with it. I know we're going to talk more about it here in just a minute. But I do think Norway was dominant, but it's not dominant in the way that people think. And they were just dominant in one sport, not all the way around.
So how I would word it is they are efficient at getting medals. I wouldn't say that they're they are dominant because if you're efficient at getting any gold medals, you're going to be considered one of the best ever. But I mean, they've won 11 Winter Olympics since 1924. And if you just look at this year's, they won 3 golds in biathlon, Nordic combined. And then they won 7. Yes, 7 in cross-country skiing. And then 2 in freestyle skiing and ski jumping. And they also won 1 gold in speed skating. But like I was alluding to with that number 7, it also helps when you have the best cross-country skier in the world in Johannes Hoesflot Klæbo, who won 6 gold medals on his own. And, I mean, they've just learned to be untouchable on the skis. And the world pretty much is just playing catch-up to them. But they're not able to really compete with the rest of the sports.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, they lead every statistical category in Winter Olympics history. They're first in all medals, gold, silver, and bronze. But what kind of success do you really have if you're out-medaling everybody else, but 37 of the medals are are on skis? I mean, yeah, like you said, it's efficient, but I mean, are you really that dominant, or are you just really good at one thing? And you kind of hinted at it, Wyatt. The U.S., very dominant in all categories. So is the U.S. now the country to look out for heading into 2030? Cole, we'll ask you first.
I mean, I would think so. In the whole all-around aspect, I would say so. But, I mean, we're still playing catch-up to some in most sports. But that has a lot to do with the fact that the U.S. doesn't have bobsledding at 6 years old like Germany. I mean, it's going to be hard to catch up whenever you're catching up a whole 12 years, maybe even more. But also, whenever you really look at it, there is a lot of disappointing performances on the U.S. side. Ilya Malin and Chloe Kim, both were very favored to win gold. I mean, you watch both those performances. They're both very upsetting and pretty sickening to watch just because you want them to win gold so bad. And Ilya Malin's was really bad. And Chloe Kim, I feel like she just, once her prodigy got ahead of her, she was like, I'll just go out and try and do whatever I want to do. If I land it, and I win gold. If I don't, my prodigy wins, she gets gold, and I get silver. So whenever you look at it, it could have been, the U.S. definitely could have closed the gap, but I still think no matter which way you put it, the U.S. has to be at least one of the best at all-around sports. But there is one country that we haven't seen in the Olympics in a long time, and that's Russia. I mean, the IOC they've placed restrictions on Russia for the betterment of almost 12 years. And they have allowed some countries who have done worse than Russia in the Olympics, and Russia's still not allowed to compete. So it's kind of hard to really put it into perspective whenever a huge country like Russia isn't competing.
No, for me, I think they are definitely dominating. The United States, they won 33 total medals, but it's as I told you, Brady, they were all in different sports. They won 8 medals in freestyle skiing, 5 in speed skating, 4 in alpine skiing, 3 in figure skating, 2 in ice hockey, 3 in bobsledding. Ice hockey, by the way, did win gold, both women's and men's. Just to throw that out there. 3 in cross-country skiing, 2 in snowboarding, 1 in curling, 1 in luge, and 1 in short track. That just shows you how well-rounded the United States team was. They were able to compete and be dominant in different sports around the Olympics, and it just shows just how much the United States works and competes and is able to be that dominant team each and every time they compete in the Olympics. And it was really cool to see, and I think the United States will be very dominant heading into 2030 as well.
Yeah, and the French Alps, look out for 2030 and look out for the U.S. because, I mean, they had athletes that literally came out of nowhere, such as Alyssa Liu. If you know her story, it is fantastic. She didn't start figure skating again until 2024, I believe, correct? 2023 or 2024. Yeah. And to be able to go into the Olympics and win gold is absolutely unheard of. Like you said, with the ice hockey teams, both of them win gold against Canada and beat Canada literally the exact same way. It just absolutely, yeah, you're pointing at the eagle on your shirt.
The eagle's better than the Canadian goose. I mean, what can we say?
Yeah, and kind of one thing I want to talk about, the Olympics come at a cost.
Yeah.
Lindsey Vonn almost lost her leg because she wanted to compete so bad. So talk about that for a second, Wyatt.
Yeah, I know the Olympics is a big event. It's one of the biggest events happening every 4 years and then every 2 years for Winter Olympics. But I think there needs to be some sort of test done, especially in Alyssa Vonn's case. She had already torn her ACL, or Lindsey Vonn, excuse me. She had already torn her ACL. She was wearing a brace. If I'm the doctors in that instance, I'm putting her through some tests. I'm putting her through maybe a simulation of the sport she does. I'm testing that knee to see if she can plant on it. I'm testing a bunch of these other things. A shoulder injury like Chloe Kim had, that's kind of a thing you can deal with. You can kind of just tape it up and go on with it. But a lower injury, especially with sports like luge, with bobsledding, with skiing, snowboarding, you need your knees, you need your legs for that. And I think they need to do some sort of test to really just see if athletes can go. And especially, like I said, in Vonn's case, her ACL was already torn. Who's to say another athlete has a torn ligament? They could tear it even worse. They could be like Lindsey Vonn and have to have surgery. So I think extensive tests need to be ran for them to even try to compete. And then if they already have the injury, they need to do more tests to really clear them to do any activity.
I mean, I agree. I think the test should be done pretty extensively. But at the end of the day, it should come down to the athlete. It's the athlete's choice if they want to compete or not. Lindsey Vonn knew what she was getting into. And I woke up bright and early to see her ski, like everyone else did in America. And whenever she crashed, it was probably one of the most, insufferable feelings ever. It just sucked the soul literally right out of me. But it showed that there's perseverance through injury. And it's important for the athletes to be able to make that assumption themselves. Like if you've already had all the doctors talk to you and everything, you still have that right to make the choice. And don't let somebody else tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Now, I think that if you have a head injury, that should be automatic. You can't ski, you can't do whatever. But if it's anything not involving the head, it should be up to the athlete.
I agree. And then we also saw a few injuries in the ice hockey world. One with Sidney Crosby and the other with Kevin Fiala. Kevin Fiala's 2026 NHL season is over. So do you guys think that we see NHL players in 2030, or do you think they leave them out?
I think we will. Even though it's not necessarily tied to the NHL still brings in millions of viewers, and especially new viewers as well, because of the Olympic stage and because of what the Olympics do for the athletes. And Like, the U.S. was in the gold medal game in 2010, right? It brought in 27.6 million views. That is insane. The highest watched NHL game in the past that many years was the Boston Bruins Stanley Cup game in, I can't really remember, but it had 8.78 million views. So whenever you look at those numbers, the Olympics totally dwarf what the NHL is putting out. So I still think that we're still going to see them just because of the whole principle of, like, this is the best on the best. Not only that, but also this still brings in a lot of avenues for the NHL.
And to piggyback on that, I think we will, because a lot of young talent is starting to come in. So I think we'll see a lot of the younger guys like Kindle. We'll see Ryan Leonard, just Connor McDavid. Crosby probably won't be in it, obviously, because he'll be 43 by the time the 2030 Olympics roll around. Ben Kindle, Seth Jarvis, Connor Bedard, just a couple to name. They want to see the young faces. They want to see the younger guys play in this sport. And obviously we saw hockey was one of the most watched sports in the Olympics this season. I don't think it changes in the 2030 Olympics. And seeing those younger guys really come up and take the places of a guy like Sidney Crosby, of a guy like Malkin, and all those kind of really talented guys is something that I think fans are going to want to watch in the 2030 Olympics.
Completely agree. I do think we see NHL players return in the 2030 Olympics. When we come back on Plead Your Case, it'll be myself versus Stone Mangus in a top 5 and 5 pick'em. Stay tuned.
The Pick'em playoff rolls on, and today we got two gentlemen that know each other very well and should provide for a very good Pick'em segment. I'm Ethan Spazarski, and in case you're new, the Pick'em playoff started 2 weeks ago when Tyler Aaron soundly defeated Cade Henderson to win his 3-2 to 2-3 win. Then last week it was, in fact, Paul Sembauer coming out on top of Richard Danini, despite both boys having 4 of their 5 picks being correct. The overtime pick off camera was decided, and Paul was the winner there. And now I bring on two gentlemen who are ready to duke it out on the desk. Stone Mangus and it's Brady Donovan, and we're going to get started here in the NHL. First game back, gentlemen, is going to be this upcoming Wednesday, which rather would be tomorrow when we're filming this. Tampa Bay versus Toronto. Both teams coming on winning streaks heading into the break. Tampa Bay has 5-game winning streak. Toronto has 3. Stone, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, those 3 games before Toronto won, they lost 6 in a row. But those 3 straight wins going into the Olympic break was really key for them. They are 6 points behind Boston for that second wild card spot right now after a shaky start to the season. Does Austin Matthews, after winning gold in Milan, have an Olympic hangover? I think he does. The Leafs struggle on the road this year. They're 11-5 overall away from Toronto. And the Lightning, 19-1-1 dating back to before Christmas. So the Lightning are going to win in Tampa today.
All righty, Brady, your turn.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the Lightning have this one in the bag. Just the Maple Leafs, penultimate team in one of the weakest divisions in hockey. I mean, like you said, I think Austin Matthews is kind of going to ride that high of winning gold at the Olympics and especially being the captain of the team that won. I think the Lightning have this one in the bag. Joseph Woll is not a very good goaltender, assuming that he will get the start against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the Lightning have this one.
All right, staying with the NHL, another two teams that have found themselves in interesting contention thus far. It's between the Dallas Stars and the Seattle Kraken. Dallas, though, a key injury to note, Mikko Rantanen out for the next 2 weeks. There's an alternate captain for Team Finland in the Olympics, the team that went home with the bronze medal. Now it will be Brady Donovan who will start with question number 2. Brady, go ahead.
Despite Mikko Rantanen being out, I'm going to take the Stars. I think Jake Ottinger is going to come out with some fire after not playing in the Olympics. Jeremy Swayman getting the weird start over him, letting up a goal from center ice. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, but Jake Ottinger, I think he comes out with some fire, man. I really think he does, and I think the Stars get a desperate win that they need. They're sitting at 3rd in the hardest division in the NHL So they desperately need every point that they can get.
Yeah, both these teams in a really eerily similar position. They're both sitting at third in their respective divisions, 6 points behind first place, but the Stars obviously in a little bit of a tougher division. The Kraken, they've been led this year. Jordan Eberle, Vince Dunn having a good year, and Shane Wright finally exploding out. I personally think, though, that Ottinger is going to have the reverse effect, is what you said. He's not going to come in hot. He's going to come in with the Olympic hangover that I mentioned that Austin Matthews will have. I think he's going to let in a couple shaky goals. He hasn't played in a couple games, and the Kraken are going to win a close one tonight.
2.5 weeks is roughly the time span for these goaltenders and some of these players who didn't get to play. Ottinger being one of them for Team USA. We'll see how much of a lag effect there is there. Well, now we're going to transition to the hardwoods. First off, though, college hoops. This game, very exciting for all fans here coming up this Wednesday. It's St. John's and UConn, two well-sounded basketball programs, two exceptional head coaches. Stone, we'll start with you.
Yeah, two great head coaches are going to go at this one-on-one. St. John's, they beat UConn in a matchup a couple weeks ago, 81-72 in Madison Square Garden. Rick Pitino has his guys heating up at the right moment, right before the postseason when March hits. And UConn, they had that 18-game win streak that was snapped by St. John's. They've played a couple really close games against some 500 teams like Butler, Georgetown. They lost to Creighton at home, their first conference loss of the season. I think they get another conference loss here against St. John's in this one.
I have to completely disagree. I think UConn has this one in the bag. Yet, St. John's does have a 13-game win streak heading into this game, but I think it ends here for Rick Pitino and his Red Storm. Just because what you didn't mention in that UConn game, whenever UConn lost, St. John's shot 31 free throws. That's inexcusable if you're UConn. So I think in this game, they get the foul trouble out of the way. They play a little bit smarter, and I think UConn walks away with the win.
I don't know. Dan Hurley, I think, he sometimes has an undisciplined team, and who's to say they don't commit 15 fouls again?
I don't see it happening.
All right, gentlemen, I like it. A little extra after the bell. Very nice little touch there. However, we'll stay with the hardwoods, this time going to the National Basketball Association in Oklahoma City, as they will be taking on the Detroit Pistons, a team that you want to talk about a 180-degree turn. The Detroit Pistons fall exactly in that category. They're sitting pretty well this year. OKC, really hot start, kind of turned down since then. However, Brady, we'll start with you. Who wins this basketball game?
This is best on best action here. You have the top team in the West versus the top team in the East. The Pistons did suffer a loss against the Spurs, but I think they bounce back here against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Cade Cunningham has been arguably a top MVP candidate. SGA has missed the past few games, their star player for the Thunder. I think the Pistons have this one.
Now, the Thunder, they've been the best team in the NBA the last couple seasons. I don't see that changing. SGA is going to knock down a couple shots, get to the free throw line. Obviously, he lives at the free throw line. The charity stripe is his home. The Thunder are going to take this one.
Alrighty, and finally, our tie-breaking game will be the Boston Celtics, who travel out to Denver, Colorado, take on the Nuggets. This is our tiebreaker game, so please include a score with this as well. Stone, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Boston, they've got depth. They've got good three-point shooting, but Denver's at home. They've got Jokic, and that ultimately is going to be the equalizer for me. I think that the Nuggets are going to take down the Boston Celtics in a close one, possibly a finals preview. They're going to win, I'm going to call it 123-119.
It's a lot closer game than I'm expecting, at least. The Celtics played the Nuggets earlier in the season, but the key part for the Nuggets, no Jamal Murray and no Nikola Jokic. This game, the Nuggets are going to absolutely blow out the Celtics. I don't even know how the Celtics are in the position that they're in. Missing Jason Tatum, their star player, I don't know how they've been able to keep up, but they have. But this game, they have no chance. I'm taking the Nuggets 112-90.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. As this will conclude our Pick'em segment here, the 5-in-5. The winner will advance on to the next round. Loser will go home. However, we will have a break next week, so you'll have to wait to hear about our winner in about 2 weeks' time. However, until then, we thank you for sitting in on this mini segment. And now we get ready to send you off over to talk. Is the All-Star break, is the All-Star games rather, really, is that format a dying form? Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome back to Plead Your Case. I'm Richie Danini alongside Brett Gambita and Tyler Walls. We are going to be discussing about the All-Star games throughout the Power 4 sports. Gentlemen, the past few years, All-Star sports have been a dying event, some could say. Do you believe that is the case for them?
Oh, I think there's one thing we could all agree on. The NHL is the standard, the state of the art, and the NFL is at the bottom. And I don't know how you feel about that, Tyler, but that's where my head's at right now.
So I agree with the take that the NFL, it just isn't a good all-star / Pro Bowl format. But I disagree that the NHL has it figured out. I feel like the MLB has been a constant producer of the best all-star games. The Home Run Derby is better than the All-Star Game. But I think that the All-Star Game stays competitive with the MLB. It seems like it's real baseball.
When you look at the weekend as a whole, too, they really have it with the Home Run Derby, like you mentioned. But I feel like the MLB All-Star Game has kind of lost its luster since 2016 because back in the day, when you won the game, you used to have home field advantage for the World Series. Your league did, the American League, National League. The American League kind of dominated in that 14-year period, so that's why they got rid of that rule. But I feel like the NL just has to get better, in my opinion. But overall, I think the MLB is second closest to the NHL when it comes to this all-star format.
I can see where you're coming from. I just disagree. Like the pitch clock now, it boosts the significance almost. Like the time of the game isn't as significant anymore. So it allows it to go faster, so I feel like they can fit more in there.
All right, gentlemen, and also talk about the NHL here. Last year, they had the Four Nations, which blew up for the All-Star Game, made them very popular last year, especially that final game of USA against Canada. This year, they took off, no All-Star break for the Olympics, and there was another thrilling game of the United States against Canada. Do you think the NHL has the formula for the All-Star break?
I would say yes. I would love if the Four Nations face-off could happen every 3 years with the Olympics being that fourth year because players take more pride in a sense when they represent their country, and we don't really see that in any other sport. The NBA, you have Team USA, and well, actually you have two Team USAs versus a Team World, and I don't think really the players in the NBA take much pride in representing their country, at least as much as they do in the NHL, and that's why the NHL has it figured out because those are some of the most highly rated games all season.
See, I agree with you there with like the NHL, the Four Nations. It blew up. Like social media was all about NHL during that time. But the NBA this year, if you watch Wemby play, he had national pride for the world team. He was all about trying to win it for his team. He was going all out. He was what made the NBA competitive this year. I mean, no player was trying until Wemby checked into the game, and then Wemby just changes I don't know how you put this. He makes an impact on that game. He changes the way that the game is played, and that is what sets the NBA apart, in my opinion.
But what you have to look at is how many times has the NBA changed their format in the last decade? We had the two-team captains where they would draft their own teams. We had the target score, which they introduced in 2020, where you were playing to get to a certain number of points. And now we have this round-robin style kind of bracket, which honestly, at this point, I can't even keep up. And plus, this year All-Star Weekend started at 5 p.m. and it was over I'm talking about Saturday, the day before the All-Star game, like with the three-point contest and the dunk contest. It was over by 8 p.m. What was I supposed to do the rest of the night?
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. They have done the Elam ending, the draft format, the West versus East, now the World versus USA, but everything is still a buzz. Like social media is a hit every time the NBA puts on something. Social media buzzes about it. It's a constant clip central. I mean, in the world today, it's short attention spans at the end of the day. So creating those fast clicks, those fast clips, that's why I feel like the NBA is the best when it comes to All-Star.
Going into the NFL, they are always considered the best in the Power Four when it comes to contests and consider of media getting around internationally even now with how they're doing with their program for international play. But they always seem in the past few years to have been really lacking in popularity when it comes to Pro Bowl games. What do you think the NFL needs to do to fix that in the sense?
I'll fix it in about 5 words. Take the flags off. That was 4.
See, I disagree again with you there. I mean, there's injury after injury in the NFL.
This is like putting the NHL players on roller skates. Should we have a roller skating All-Star game? Should we have a roller skating All-Star game, Richie?
I don't think so, no.
I mean, it's just there's injury after injury in the NFL. You don't want your best player in the league to tear his ACL.
Let's let the MLB players play with wiffle ball and wiffle bats.
Think about how many injuries have happened in the Pro Bowl
Then have it
games.
after the season like you did before 2000.
But I just feel like it's better you have something to set up before the Super Bowl so you don't rush into it. So having as a flag football, okay, you get your star players, you get that friendly level competition that's required. I just feel like they can do better at advertising it.
Okay, that I agree with.
That is what would set them apart and like boost their ratings a bit, because this year I didn't even know the Pro Bowl game was going on, but it was still a good format when I did watch it.
They played on a Tuesday. That was I didn't know it was on until I started flipping through the channels, but still I didn't watch it because they're not playing real football.
And to think, the NFL owns the calendar in February, and so when they have that Pro Bowl in February, it boosts to it.
Well, owning the calendar of February is a bit stretch. I would say maybe the first half of February, because that's when the Pro Bowl and Super Bowl, that's when we get to, and then we go over to other sports. One last question for you guys here. Well, obviously, we talked about the MLB a little bit earlier, but do you think there's anything they need to do to change how they have the All-Star game, as the AL is 8-2 in the past 10 games since 2015?
I don't think you can really change anything. I think the talent gap just the NL players have to show up in those moments, and whether that be, I know we've seen a lot of pitching changes, like starting pitchers will only go one inning before another starter comes in. Maybe you leave a guy in if he's pitched a good inning. I don't know, something like that. It could be as deep as strategy goes.
I mean, the reason the MLB works is because the players can perform at 80 to 90% and still make it competitive. So with all the stars from each league, like say you throw Paul Skeens in to add on what you said, Brett. You throw Paul Skeens in and let him pitch one inning. That's not really entertaining. We want to see Paul Skeens go for 3, 4, maybe 5 innings, and then you bring in relievers. I just feel like that would be better for the MLB.
Well, that is going to do it for our segment here on Plead Your Case. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the World Baseball Classic. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Plead Your Case.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I'm Mia Hinkins, and welcome to Buell Hall, home of Waynesburg University's Department of Communication.
Welcome back to Plead Your Case. I'm Cade Henderson here to bring you the WBC segment of episode 18. Spring training has just started about a week ago, and the World Baseball Classic inches closer. I'm alongside Chase Maseko and Paul Sembauer here to discuss the recent events in the WBC. Starting off, Tarek Skubal has recently announced that he will only be pitching one game for the USA, and that will only be in pool play. He did ask to get tickets to their final if they do make it. Guys, what do you think about that?
In my opinion, I think it's kind of good for him. You don't want to overwork your top starter on a baseball team like this for the Detroit Tigers. It just creates a huge risk for injury, because what are the Detroit Tigers without Tarek Skubal? It's been quite apparent that they really can't do that much with pitching, but if Tarek Skubal gets hurt, you lose him for a couple months, you're looking at the Detroit Tigers having a terrible start. I just think this is good for Tarek Skubal. Take things slow.
Well, it might be good for Tarek Skubal, but it's not great for the United States of America. When you look at these other teams that have struggled with finding players, take Puerto Rico, for example, with them losing Francisco Lindor, Carlos Correa, and Jose Altuve to some insurance issues. All those players were really not happy about not being able to compete in this tournament, but Skubal gets his insurance. He has the opportunity to play. He's like, yeah, I'll just take one game. Where's the love for your country, man? Like, you're finally getting to do what Paul Skeens said was the greatest honor of his life, pitching for America, and he decides, you know what, one game, I'm good. See you in the championship.
I mean, to add my 2 cents onto this, we just watched the Olympics. If you watch the men's final, Jack Hughes got a high stick and knocked out multiple teeth before he scored the game-winning goal for the USA. I think Tarek Skubal pitching one game is absolutely ridiculous. I think he's a redcoat It's brutal. You got to pitch. You decided to pitch for America. This is a team that has never gone pitching. Lance Lynn was this team's best pitcher last year, and now you have Skubal and Skeens, and he won't pitch. He'll only pitch one game. A meaningless game against Great Britain, probably. A meaningless game. So moving on, you were talking about Puerto Rico and their losses. They lost Lindor and Correa. How do you think they will address the infield spots without Lindor?
You know, it's a very tricky subject for Puerto Rico, the loss of Correa. They also lost Jose Barrios, who would be one of their best starters. It's usually really a pitching issue for Puerto Rico, but Lindor led the team in at-bats, had the most hits on the team in the 2023 World Baseball Classic with 20, batted .450 throughout the tournament. So this is a guy who is essential to this team. He's the captain. He's played in World Series, baseball classics. You know, he plays in one of the biggest markets in the world. He really is kind of the heart and soul, the real captain of his team, Puerto Rico. I'm interested, as you all are, to see who steps up in his absence.
Yeah, you know, like you said, there's no one that can really fill that position that Francisco Lindor did. Without him, I feel like Puerto Rico is at a really great disadvantage in this World Baseball Classic. With their pool, they play in a pool alongside, you know, Cuba, Canada, Colombia. I say that's one of the weaker pools of the entire thing. Still some room for them to grow, but at the same time, no Lindor, I don't think they're going to do that good.
Yeah, and currently they're going to try and replace him with Edwin Arroyo, a guy who hasn't even played Major League time, so it's kind of a odd decision on their part. Speaking of filling roles, Corbin Carroll broke his hand before the World Baseball Classic, and they expect to fill his job with fellow lefty Roman Anthony. What do you think Roman Anthony is going to do here at the World Baseball Classic?
I have very high hopes for Roman Anthony. We were just watching him on the TV playing spring training against the Pirates, and I'm really going to tell you how similar these two players really are. Now, Roman Anthony only played in 71 games last season compared to Corbin Carroll playing a whole season's worth of games. Corbin Carroll was a 30-30 player. We haven't seen Anthony get to that level yet, but he's just in his second season. But when we look at some of the advanced metrics, WOBA, weighted on base average, this is a combination stat of on base percentage and batting average. They both had an expected WOBA of 372. Roman Anthony's actual WOBA was 376 and Corbin Carroll's was 371. So just based off of the hitting profile, two similar players. If you look at things like exit velocity, then they have just a 1 mile an hour difference in that stat. The real difference between these two is Corbin Carroll's much smaller. He has 98th percentile sprint speed, 29.8 feet per second down the line to first base. Roman Anthony just in the 70th. So that's really the two difference. But as far as the bat goes, Roman Anthony, a great fit for this Team USA.
Yeah, no, like you said, I just think the only difference is going to be their speed. Both of them look really similar, swinging the bat, you know, how far the ball goes, how fast it's leaving the park. They're pretty much identical. The only thing that's going to be different is speed. I'm really excited to see a young player like this try and step up to the stage for his country.
All right, well, finally, then we'll move on to talk about the entire WBC in its entirety. What do you guys think is the hardest pool to get out of in the tournament?
So this is kind of a weird one. I'm going with Pool A, but it's not necessarily because it's difficult. It's more that the collection of teams we have is the weakest of the other groups. So in case you don't know, the top two teams from each group do move on. So from the other three groups, I think it's pretty obvious who's going to move on. You know, you have the Dominican Republic and Venezuela in Pool B, or in Pool D, USA and Mexico in Pool B, and then Japan and Korea in Pool C. But in this Pool A, we mentioned the questions with Puerto Rico. When you look down the list, Team Canada, they have a really good pitching staff, Jamison Taillon, James Paxton, Cal Quantrill. But the hitters, they have the two Naylor brothers and Owen Casey, a great prospect for the Chicago Cubs, but a lot of question marks there. Colombia, very weak pitching. The only two pitchers I recognize on the roster, Julio Teheran and Jose Quintana, so not really what you want there. Their hitters, Gio Urshela, Donovan Solano, not great. So I'm taking Pool A just because of the weaknesses of all the rosters. I'm super interested to see who gets out of Pool A.
I did say Pool C, just due to the fact that Japan is a constant powerhouse in Pool C. You know, Muntaka Murakami, Okamoto, Shohei Ohtani, those three guys, huge names in the Japan baseball world. They've ruled that pool for year after year. They're always the finalists. I think they have Out of all the World Baseball Classics, they have the most with 3, I think. You can fact check me on that. But, smaller leverage teams, Australia, Czechia, these teams that want to make a run for it all, they can't do that because they got to get through Japan first. And if you can't beat Shohei Ohtani. He's the best player on the planet, I think, undisputably. But I will say Pool C is the hardest.
I'd have to agree with Chase that Pool A is the hardest, and it's not because the teams are very good. I think Puerto Rico got weaker with losing Lindor. Their infield looks super weak. I mean, you're playing Nolan Arenado at third. That's pretty awful. I just mentioned they're playing a prospect at shortstop, so that's not really a great anything either. It's all even teams. There's 4 teams in that group that could easily escape out of it with a good run, and you could even consider Colombia being in that conversation as well. So Pool A is the hardest, just from the fact that all the teams are so evenly matched. Pool C, as you mentioned, it has Japan, but the rest of those teams, Korea went 1-3 in that kind of group last year. It was Australia that escaped in 2023 out of the Japan group in the Tokyo Dome. That's going to be interesting to see, but I don't think it's the hardest group out there. So that'll do it for the WBC segment here on PYC, and that'll do it for the entire episode, actually, here on Plead Your Case. I'm Cade Henderson signing off with Paul Sembauer and Chase Maseko. Thank you for tuning in to Plead Your Case.